The Void monster, known as the exospecies, invaded Earth, and Venom didn't even dare to confront it. He could only send his subordinates to their doom. Yet these subordinates were not ordinary. They could combine and produce countless blades, and there was even a female symbiote rivaling the Flash. But the exospecies only targeted Venom, so he was scared and hid himself. Today, I will take you to watch the newly released Venom 3, The Last Dance. Without further ado, the film begins. Eddie crossed into the Marvel Universe, which is the universe where the Avengers reside. But here, he didn't go looking for the Avengers. Eddie began his own story. He was constantly troubled by the multiverse, until Eddie finally returned to his own universe. He saw his own wanted notice on television. At this time, Eddie was in Mexico, and if there were wanted news here, it meant his hometown was filled with wanted posters. He definitely couldn't go back. Eddie temporarily didn't know where to go, until he saw a Statue of Liberty figurine on the table, so they prepared to head to New York. As soon as Eddie stepped out, he was caught on surveillance, and at this moment, Venom said he could smell bad guys nearby. He wanted to fill his stomach before departure. Soon, they arrived at an old warehouse, where they saw many dogs being held captive. It seemed they were involved in illegal dogfighting. Before long, a few thugs approached from behind. They had no idea how powerful the person in front of them was. They ignored Eddie's warnings completely. The next second, Venom appeared, and he immediately unleashed all the dogs, and joined them to fight the thugs. Along the way, he even displayed a semi-separated state with Eddie, and the two worked together seamlessly to easily subdue the thugs. Soon, Venom captured 4 people, and then Eddie revealed himself. They spoke unskilled slogans together.
We are Venom.
And then he devoured them one by one. After it was all over, the two released all the puppies, and continued on their path of escape. But they didn't notice a huge and ugly monster appearing behind them. It glanced at the direction they had left. While a group of special forces arrived at the bar, they found the remnants left by Venom there, and took the bartender back to their base. On the other side, Dr. Payne arrived at the secret base in Area 51, and the government announced that it would be shut down in 3 days. However, the public was unaware that a new Area 55 had been built underground in Area 51, specifically for studying and controlling symbiotes. Dr. Payne was the main person in charge of the project. General Rick brought the Venom remnants back to the base, and the lab technician Sadie stored it away. At this time, aside from Venom's remnants, there were many different parts of various symbiotes. Soon, the experiments on the symbiotes began. Unexpectedly, a seriously ill man successfully bonded with one. Moreover, his physical condition was revitalized. But the man was extremely panicked. The doctor walked over and said that this was also to save him. Suddenly, the symbiote took him forward, saying repeatedly, "Many monsters are coming. At that time, all living beings will cease to exist. The Dark Sea will cover the entire universe." The symbiote became extremely agitated, and saw the arrival of the Void in a vision. On the other side, Eddie and Venom were at an altitude of 10,000 meters. They were outside the plane, and this was just because Venom wanted to prove he could fly. At this moment, the monster on the ground saw Venom's figure, and it leaped directly onto the airplane. Venom steadied himself, and when he turned to see the monster, he was stunned. Then the monster suddenly attacked Venom, but they were now at 10,000 meters in altitude. The monster slipped and fell into the engine. Seeing the threat vanish, he immediately disappeared as well. Eddie was now bewildered, falling straight down towards the ground. Fortunately, after a moment, Venom transformed into a parachute, and slowly descended with him. Meanwhile, the monster, shredded by the engine, fell to the ground. But unexpectedly, the monster could reassemble its broken body, seemingly possessing abilities similar to that of a symbiote. At this time, Eddie successfully landed with Venom's guidance, and then Venom told him that the monster was called the exospecies. It was a symbiote hunter, but it originated from the same creator as they did. However, all the symbiotes had united to betray their creator, permanently imprisoning him in a cage of their own making. If an exospecies discovers him, all the monsters would come rushing. Eddie wanted to ask the name of the creator. Eddie then asked, "Why is the exospecies relentlessly pursuing them?" Venom told him a story. If the host dies and the symbiote chooses to save him, the life forces of both will merge, forming a key known as the codex. It can open the cage that holds NAR captive. Eddie remarked that fortunately, they hadn't died yet.
Oh no.
Which means the codex had already formed within him. That's why the exospecies was able to track them. Moreover, as long as they are both alive, they will continue to exist. However, if Venom doesn't fully transform, the exospecies won't be able to track the codex's signal, but they must hurry to leave this place, and their only means of transportation was their 2 legs. Suddenly, they found a horse in the distance, and Venom instantly bonded with it.
Love horses!
Venom then lifted Eddie up. To his surprise, the horse was incredibly fast.
Ride me, cowboy!
They even recreated the famous aerial acrobatics of the first film. Soon, Venom arrived at a riverbank to drink water. But at this moment, a helicopter flew in behind him, and the team members were equipped with professional sonic weapons. The horse panicked and Eddie was thrown into the water. Venom quickly dove into the water as well. The special forces switched to diving gear and jumped in. They aimed to capture the 2 of them. In a critical moment, Venom encountered a fish, transforming into a toxic fish. Then, Venom leaped out of the water and became a toxic frog, and he looked at Eddie from the surface. Then he jumped up and transformed back into Venom, even though this would expose their location to the exospecies, but he couldn't bear to watch Eddie die. Soon, the exospecies locked onto their position. The underwater soldiers shocked Venom with electricity. They didn't notice the danger approaching. As the exospecies burrowed in, lifting them up, Venom seized the opportunity to release his transformation, and then he formed a fishtail to escape quickly. The exospecies, unable to find its target, became a bit angry, and it grabbed a soldier, swallowing him whole. The general informed the doctor at the base that a new monster had appeared here, and they had lost 3 elite soldiers. The doctor realized this might be the apocalypse the symbiotes spoke of, but she didn't care about the soldiers' lives. The doctor asked if there were any samples, and the general angrily hung up the phone. The doctor found the lab technician from before, and requested that the symbiote manifest, saying that the thing he feared had already appeared. The symbiote whip made its entrance, warning the humans present that, if NAR were released, the entire universe would face extinction. At this point, the general returned to the laboratory, and asked Whip how to stop the exospecies. Whip then recounted the story of the codex, stating that only Venom carried the codex. As long as the host and the symbiote were both alive, the codex would continue to exist. The general understood his implication, that killing one of them would suffice. On the other side, Eddie arrived at a hillside where a family was camping. They even invited him to join them for a meal. However, when Venom saw it was vegetarian, he threw it away. Upon learning that he was hiking to New York, the husband Martin enthusiastically offered that he could give them a ride to Las Vegas. They then chatted about the now-closed Area 51, and Martin firmly believed in the existence of aliens. His greatest dream was to see them with his own eyes. Unbeknownst to him, one was right in front of him. After a day and night of travel, the group arrived in Las Vegas. Martin gave Eddie $20, and after thanking him, the group parted ways. Eddie could go to New York with this 20 yuan, so he planned to go to an arcade to earn some money, but he was dressed too poorly, and the doorman wouldn't let him in. Venom came out and knocked him out. Then he turned to look back, noticing a suited man who was relieving himself, so he decided to get some new gear, and the man ended up urinating on Eddie. Eddie changed his clothes and transformed into a suit thug. The doorman let him in without hesitation. Venom then took control and headed straight for the slot machines. They put their remaining $20 into the machine. The two hoped to hit it big, but by the end, they hadn't won a single cent. Venom angrily exclaimed, "Lady Luck is truly fickle." He turned to point at another machine, but then Venom spotted a familiar face, Mrs. Chun. They met and complimented each other on their sexiness. Meanwhile, the soldiers at the base detected Eddie's presence in Las Vegas. Through the surveillance system, the general said to send out a 6-man team. Then he made a call to a mysterious figure. The general requested control over the Empire project. It seems that some kind of conspiracy is brewing. On the other side, Mrs. Chen invited Venom to dance, although Eddie strongly opposed it. But Venom still couldn't resist appearing. The exospecies immediately detected the location of the codex. Venom hurriedly retreated back into Eddie, and the exospecies, not detecting the codex, vanished again. Soon after, the 6-man team arrived at the scene, and upon landing, they immediately fired sonic weapons, forcing Venom out and taking him away. They also grabbed Eddie in the process, but upon returning to the base, they didn't notice that the exospecies had followed them in. Meanwhile, Martin's family had also arrived at Area 51, and the son found a gap to slip through. Thus, the family began their adventure in Area 51. On the other side, Venom was trapped in a force field cage and couldn't break free. while Eddie was locked in a cell. When he woke up, he discovered that Venom was no longer inside him. The whip across from him told him that he must protect the codex. He needed to ensure that the exospecies remained imprisoned. The whip further stated that there was a symbiote army within the base, ready to rescue them and protect the codex. At this moment, the doctor and her assistant arrived, and she wanted to talk to Eddie. However, before they could say much, the general burst in with his men. He intended to kill Eddie and destroy the codex, and the general fired his weapon directly. But unexpectedly, Venom had already been freed by the assistant. He bonded with Eddie, taking on his complete form. At the same time, the exospecies discovered the codex. It charged towards Venom, and the whip rushed out to support and urged him to run. But in the next moment, it was disintegrated by the exospecies. Venom was nearly caught and quickly shrank back into Eddie. At this moment, the assistant released all the symbiotes. But so many symbiote warriors couldn't defeat the exospecies. At this moment, the assistant looked at the whip nearby. Then Eddie discovered an escape route, and Venom reappeared. The symbiotes charged through the wall with Venom.
Best shoes ever!
But relying solely on the two-headed symbiote couldn't hold off the exospecies. Soon, the battlefield shifted to a more open area outside, but the exospecies inflicted too much damage. Casualties were heavy in an instant. At this point, Eddie spotted Martin's family, and he went to the lookout tower to prepare to send them to safety. Venom officially met this family. But at this moment, the general suddenly raised a rocket launcher. A massive explosion temporarily killed the exospecies, but it also killed one symbiote, and sent a car flying into the base of the lookout tower. In a critical moment, Venom and the other symbiotes worked together to save the group. However, the exospecies had a strong regeneration ability, and soon it reappeared to launch a sonic attack. At the same time, it informed the NAR to increase reinforcements. Seeing so many exospecies, Eddie realized that, if this continued, everyone would die. So he prepared to transform into Venom, and ride a motorcycle to lure the exospecies away. He also told the general to prepare for an attack. Soon, he attracted two exospecies away, arriving above the munitions depot. At this moment, Venom returned to Eddie, and the soldiers took the opportunity to detonate the underground explosives. However, the explosion had little effect, and the helicopter was still shot down by the exospecies. Then the general was hit while trying to save someone, and Eddie flew over the rotor blades. He grabbed a rotor blade and decapitated the monster, while the whip quickly saved the general and the soldiers. Suddenly, another exospecies grabbed Eddie, and he was about to be bitten. But Martin suddenly arrived and smashed the exospecies's head. Yet there were still many monsters left in the base. The whip was disintegrated by the sonic attack during the battle, and then it was strangled to death by the exospecies. More and more exospecies arrived on the battlefield. Venom and Eddie were saying their final goodbyes. Then Venom transformed to attract all the exospecies, devouring them as he moved toward the acid pit. He was ready to go down with all the exospecies. At the last moment, Venom threw Eddie out, using a board to shield him from the acid. Then Venom ripped apart all the pipes, and the general was caught in the chaos, with acid splashing all over him. So he took out a grenade to ignite the flammable acid. A massive explosion engulfed the entire Area 51, and the assistant fell to the ground, about to be caught in the blast. The doctor crushed the purple symbiote in her pocket. She successfully saved the assistant at the last moment. Although Eddie was severely injured at the center of the explosion, he was fortunate to have survived. The government pardoned Eddie of all his crimes, as a reward for saving the world. However, Eddie only wanted his good brother to come back. After being discharged from the hospital, he arrived in New York. Eddie replaced Venom to see his favorite Statue of Liberty. The film concludes here, and it's a decent finale for the series. The special effects are stunning, and many new symbiotes make their appearances. However, the post-credit scene of the second film mentions Spider-Man, but this film has no connection to Spider-Man. I expected a showdown with Spider-Man, but the entire film only featured a few exospecies battles. There were also some illogical moments. Knowing that the exospecies were tracking them, Venom still chose to appear and dance with Mrs. Chun. When the exospecies showed up, he quickly retreated. He really didn't care about putting Mrs. Chan in danger. In the end, Eddie went alone to the Statue of Liberty, and Tom Hardy had also lost his youthful physique. It can be said that there's a bit of melancholy both in and out of the story. However, in the final post-credit scene, a fragment of Venom bonded with a cockroach. This might signal the end of Tom Hardy's collaboration with Venom. But the story doesn't end here. Venom and the symbiotes may still appear in the Marvel Universe. We'll see then if he can go up against Spider-Man. Alright, the video ends here. If you enjoyed my channel, please subscribe. Your support is the greatest encouragement for me.